Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I am Suzanne Simon with Restore America's Estuaries. I'm the program director for the NEP Watersheds Grants Program. I'm joined today by our Senior Manager of Communications, Rob Shane, who will be helping me field questions, so you will hear his voice from time to time along the way. The request for proposals, along with other information, is available on the RAY website, which is www.estuaries.org. I'm going to turn off the camera for now so we can focus on content, but I wanted to have folks put a face to a name. All right, housekeeping. Everyone's on mute. If you have a question or comment, please submit it via the chat function. If we do not address your comment or question, please email me or make an appointment with me to touch base. We'll cover that later. This webinar is one of two and is being recorded. We will post one to Ray's YouTube channel and website, so you can refer to it again or refer it to other colleagues. So the agenda is on the slide there. You can see what we'll be covering today. We'll do an overview of the program, eligibility on a number of fronts, amount of funding available in the anticipated awards, budget and match, the process on that front too, and then the overall application, what to do, and the deadlines and timelines. Next slide. Before we go into that, I wanted to do a brief introduction to our organization in case you are unfamiliar. We are a national organization dedicated to the protection and restoration of bays and estuaries as essential resources for our nation. You can see our 10 member groups there on the map, and then down below is a list of our affiliate members. We couldn't do this work without you and all of our members. And if you're interested in becoming an affiliate member, please check out our website. There's some great benefits and options there. Next slide. So before, again, we get into the nuts and bolts of the grant program, wanted to highlight some other resources and opportunities. We have a Caring for Our Coast grant program that's in the Gulf of Mexico. Those are due January 31st, obviously in a month or so. And then the other one is more in the future. That's for folks in Rhode Island and Southeast Massachusetts. That's the Southeast New England Watershed Implementation Grants. That RFP will be released in the spring of 2024. In terms of some in-person events, we have our big biennial summit that will be in October 2024 in the DC metro area. And then we have National Estuaries Week, which is annually in September. So some ways to get together in person. In terms of resources, we have our Coastal Restoration Toolkit, which is a great website that helps folks kind of get off the ground in terms of doing restoration. We have our Inclusive Coast Initiative, which is our DEIJ efforts. And then we have a lot more. Just check it out, estuaries.org. Next slide, please. So a brief overview. You've heard me say that this is the NEP Watersheds program. The NEP stands for National Estuary Program, which is a place-based program within the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. You also hear me call that EPA, with the goal to protect and restore the water quality and ecological integrity of areas of national significance. Currently, 28 estuaries located along the Atlantic, Gulf, and Pacific coasts and in Puerto Rico are designated as estuaries of national significance. EPA has a great website that provides more details. I encourage folks to learn more about the program there. This grant program was established by Congress as a competitive fund designed to help these estuarine areas and to address urgent and challenging issues. EPA administers the program in coordination with and funding from EPA. A quick point of clarification that these funds are not in any way associated with the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, also known as Bill, or the Inflation Reduction Act, IRA. As a result, they are not restricted to infrastructure projects, and I'll review project types in a bit, but I wanted to make this clear early on because it is a program that was designed and appropriated by Congress. Next slide, please. Okay, one of the first key things for folks to understand is geographic eligibility. So there is a map, there's a link in the RFP, and it is an eligibility map. It's interactive. You can either use a Zoom function or use town, address, etc. So it is only the areas in the blue green on the screen that are eligible. All on the ground efforts must occur in one or more of these areas. The brief description is that these eligible areas reflect the boundaries of the 28 existing NEP study areas. I want to stress as well that projects may occur in one or more of these areas. So it's absolutely okay and even encouraged for groups to think big about projects that have impacts in multiple locations. Next slide. So this is an example. So you see the words Chesapeake City. That is Back Creek. So if the question is, would a project on Back Creek be eligible? You can go in here and you can see. And the answer is, if it is to the west, in other words, that grayish area, kind of more in the Maryland side of things, it would not be eligible. But if it is on the eastern portion, again, more in the Delaware side of things, it would be eligible. So the key here is to really take a hard look at the eligibility map to understand what would and would not be eligible. A quick point of clarification, efforts that support an on-the-ground project, for example, if you have a lab that occurs outside of the blue-green area, that's fine, but any on-the-ground work must be done in those eligibility areas. Okay, next slide, please. So entities, please check the RFP for more details. Again, this is sort of a higher level webinar, but in brief, public organizations include state, county, local, regional entities, nonprofits. They must be able to demonstrate your nonprofit status. Academic institutions, tribes and indigenous communities that can be federally recognized, state recognized, or some other association of indigenous communities. Please note that for-profit organizations and federal agencies may be on a team, but not as the applicant. So if you're putting a team together, let's say a nonprofit is the applicant, you can have for-profit organizations and other federal agencies, but not as the lead. For definition purposes, a team member is defined as an entity that will receive funds or will provide match and are listed in the budget. A couple of other points, you may partner with a local NEP. NEPs are also allowed to be the applicant. Also, given the competitive nature of this grant, there will be one award per entity. Next slide, please. So project requirements, again, this is a high-level overview. Please check the RFP for more details. As I noted earlier, this is a congressionally created and mandated program, and one of the things that's in that language is that any project must address one or more priority actions contained in the relevant comprehensive conservation management plans. That's a CCMP. This document is one that is created by each NEP that outlines what the key areas are and how they should be addressed. There is a link in the RFP that will connect you to all the CCMPs. So make sure that whatever project you're proposing, it aligns with one or more CCMP, or at the very least the CCMP in the area in which you will be working. Projects may be up to 4 years in length. Project must be completed within the award time period. The project must yield environmental benefits and be able to report on it, focusing on natural systems benefits. So applicants should describe what success looks like and how it would be measured via metrics. For example, acres, pounds of nutrients removed, laws or regulations implemented, etc. So please try to be clear about what those metrics are. Projects must address one or more of the priorities for this RFP, which are loss of key habitats, coastal resilience and extreme wet weather events, stormwater runoff, and proliferation of invasive species. Please note that each RFP will have a different mix, and these priorities were also designated by Congress. Okay, want to take a pause here to underscore that we are looking for a wide variety of projects. They can occur across multiple eligibility areas, as I noted earlier. We also encourage innovative, larger scale ideas, along with projects that may occur on smaller scales. Funds from a variety of sources may be used for leverage and or match. I'll get to that in a sec. Overall, the key thing to remember is that we encourage a variety of proposed projects so long as they meet the requirements and will ultimately result in improvements to estuarine conditions. Okay, I'm going to pause there. Rob, do we have any questions that have come in thus far?
So far, so good.
All right, next slide then. So this is what I call a food for thought slide. So this is just some things to get your juices flowing in terms of what you're thinking about. Please note this is not an exhaustive list, and the intent here is to just provide some ideas. So on the ground projects, these are kind of what a lot of people think about. This would be habitat restoration, nutrient abatement. We do fund planning, design, and feasibility. These can be engineering and or project designs, modeling. These are eligible so long as the applicant demonstrates a clear connection between the proposed efforts and improved estuarine conditions. Again, it's that hook into improving our estuaries is the thing to keep in mind. Capacity building, this can be public entities and community groups, changes to codes, ordinances, etc. Protection, as noted here, there's migration corridors, conservation, the list goes on and on and on. Again, this is not meant to be a comprehensive list, so please, again, check the RFP. And if what you're considering, you're still up in the air and you're not sure, please reach out to me if you still have questions, and I'm happy to talk with you about it. And I'll show you how in a few slides. Okay, what's not allowed? Next slide. Okay, so research for research sake. Think of this as ivory tower or fully academic. That is not allowed. Applied, in other words, research that will ultimately lead to improvements in estuarine conditions, that is allowed. Similarly, we want to see an outreach and education component to a project, but the only deliverable cannot be only outreach and education. Routine monitoring, ditto, not allowed. So in other words, if someone says, oh, we've been monitoring this estuary for 20 years, we just want to add another year on, that is not eligible. But monitoring as part of baseline monitoring or post-project monitoring or something along those lines that helps inform on-the-ground activities, that would be allowed. Land acquisition is not allowed with use of the federal funds, although it may be used for non-federal match so long as it occurs during the project period. So if, let's say, someone donated land 2 years prior to the start of this project period that you'd propose, that would not be eligible. Social surveys, questionnaires, and similar efforts, not allowed. Anything that's part of legal settlements, mitigation, anything along those lines is ineligible. We cap the number of LOIs as 3 per entity. And if you have, there's more information on the RFP on that front. Again, if you have questions, please get in touch. I realize that there are a lot of nuances here, and I'm happy to spend time talking with you about them. Next slide, please. All right, so this is the show me the money page. So we have approximately 2.5 million to award per project cost. That is, the size of the project should be between approximately $200,000 and $500,000. So if you do the math, we anticipate selecting between 5 and 13 projects, depending on how the numbers shake out. Next slide, please. So budget and match. Please follow the format and details in the RFP, particularly with respect to the categories. Those are federal cost categories. New this year, if you go onto the homepage, since you're all here on the webinar, you probably found it. There is a fillable spreadsheet available online to hopefully help you make those cost categories line up a bit better. Please follow that. And again, ask us questions if you have them. So match, there was a 30% non-federal match. So for example, if you requested $200,000 in federal dollars, the non-federal match requirement would be $60,000 for a project total of $260,000. Really think through how you can get to match. I lovingly say be legally creative about it and really think of what is at your disposal, even if it might be perhaps not what you typically think of. So we have volunteer hours, in-kind contributions that can be donated boat time, donated lab time, donated supplies, time and effort of partners. Those all count. And again, if you have questions, let us know. Please note that match must occur and be expended during the project period. And so that's key for when you're thinking about how match is going to line up within your project. Similar to projects that are ineligible, match may not be from settlements, mitigation, or anything along those lines. So I know that in some cases, people use NERDA or NERDAR funds for the non-federal match. That cannot happen with this program. Similarly, most, when I say most, NIFWIF dollars cannot be used. There are some exceptions to that, and there's a couple in the RFP. Again, if you have questions, please be in touch. So we do have the ability to do pre-award periods for a couple months prior, but that's on a case-by-case basis. And that really has to do with the timing of your project. Also, we do have a waiver request. So in other words, if you are particularly a smaller organization, or if you're an organization that has trouble meeting non-federal match, there is a place on the application, the portal. We'll get to that in a sec. You may request a waiver from the non-federal match requirement. Note that requesting a waiver will not impact how our proposal is reviewed, nor will a waiver automatically be granted. So you need to provide details and explain why you need it and how you would meet some of the other requirements. So please check out the RFP for additional information. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is a two-step process. We refer to the first stage as a letter of intent. You can also think of it as a pre-proposal, followed by a full proposal if invited. For this LOI stage, it's not simply a letter that you upload, even though it says it's a letter of intent. In the past, we'd requested a PDF upload with some requirements, but folks didn't always abide by the requested page limits. So this stage consists of a series of online text boxes. I'll show you an example. I'll show you how to get to it here in a sec. And it does follow what is in the RFP. So we've kept this two-stage process based on the feedback we've gotten from folks with the overall goal of making and keeping the process efficient for everybody involved. So again, I'll show you the portal here in a sec, but there is an online submittal portal. The timeline here, the big timeline for you all right now is January 26th. That's when LOIs are due. And then the remaining key dates are particularly if you are invited to submit a full proposal. The evaluation frameworks and scoring are in the RFP. I encourage you to look at that. And last but not least, this is an important thing that I like to stress. One of the requirements is a letter of acknowledgement from the local NEP. It is not necessarily a letter of support or endorsement. It is a letter of acknowledgement. Please reach out sooner than later to these folks, as it's the responsibility of the applicant to reach these deadlines. There is a list of NEP contacts, and there is a link from the EPA webpage. So please, please, please reach out to those folks sooner than later. Next slide. Okay, so to get to the submittal portal, so you're going to start with our web page, and then you'll see those little red things that look like oblong circles. The middle one is submit your LOI. That will take you to another screen. You'll set up an account. It's very straightforward. And the nice thing about having an account is you can save as you go along. And then that will take you to the submittal portal itself. That's the screenshot on the right. So this is the landing page that you see. You'll get some instructions. And one thing I just want to go through real quick is that please make sure that you save on a regular basis. That's really key. Next slide. Also, some helpful hints: develop all your materials first separately, then finalize, then enter them into the portal. There is some ability, as I said, to save and tweak, but that is not ideally the way you do it. You're going to want to do that as much as possible before you submit. Like I said, setting up the count is quick and easy and does allow you to save. And as I said, you really, really need to save often. And then navigating, we had some questions on in early testing. So this is the screenshot at the bottom is an enlargement of the navigation. So the area that's highlighted in blue that shows you where you are. And then each one of those, so for example, I circled application information. Think of those as a separate tab or a separate page. You can navigate through by clicking the next button. That's fine too, but if you want to jump around to each of those tabs, if you will, that's also an easy way to pop through. The submittal portal does reflect what's in the RFP. So if you want to look at the RFP, start developing your materials, and then also check in, take a look, see through the portal, that's fine too. You can do that as well. But we did our best to make sure that there shouldn't be any surprises in terms of what happens when you get to the submittal portal. Next slide, please. Okay, so I realized we covered an awful lot of information here, and I recognize that there's a lot of nuance and some gray areas here. So there is a way to schedule time to talk to me. So again, the screenshot on the left is the landing page or our homepage for this grant program. And you go down a couple of paragraphs and it says, email, or you can use the Calendly app. Use that link. That will take you to the Calendly app, and that hooks directly into my calendar. So that way you can find a time that works, that I have available, that works for you and your team. So please go ahead and do that if that would be easier, let's say, than email. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so I think we hit all of the key highlights. Like I said, I know that was a lot of information. And like I said, we will be posting one of the recordings to our website. So you are welcome to our YouTube channel, I should say, and to the grant program homepage. So you can take a look at it again, or you can share it with colleagues. Please check out the information on our website and feel free to reach out with questions. I'll pause there. Rob, it looks like we haven't had any questions come in. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All righty. Okay. Well, that means folks are just frantically taking notes and hopefully looking to make Calendly appointments with me. So on that front, thank you very, very much for your time. And I look forward to reading your LOIs. Thanks. Have a great day and happy holidays.